Now, I've been saying for a while now that modern anime fans, specifically modern Western anime fans, have been ruining the medium, specifically when it comes to changes being made to fit a more global audience, because they are not familiar with, nor are they a fan of, anything that is traditionally Japanese. They want to appeal to their more Western sensibilities, and to that I've always said, then get the hell out of the fandom, get the hell out of the medium. And it looks like the director of the anime, Frieren, may agree with me. So welcome back to Words Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idol, and yes, we got these Chibi Reviews video, and I've been watching his content a bit lately. Ever since you guys have turned me on to it during the streams and whatnot, I've been enjoying what he has to say. So, yeah, it looks like he's covering an article. Frieren director voices concern on overseas anime fans' bias towards certain popular trends. I'm curious where this could go, because I don't actually know what the full details is, so we're going to take a look at this, we're going to react to it before we do hit the subscribe button. I'm a nerdy news channel, I cover nerdy news every day, and let's find out what the story is here.
I think we all know what the director's talking about when he states popular trends in anime. If you've been watching anime for a long time, you definitely know, you definitely have seen it, and it's clear that he's
By the way, your boy, been watching anime for a long time, probably since around 96 or so.
Talking about battle shonen, he's talking about new anime fans, he's talking about the rise of certain anime in the last 5 or so years, and there's a lot of examples I can outline to kind of showcase what he's talking about, and so let's get into that first. First off, we gotta look at, where this really all started, at least, when anime started to blast into the mainstream.
Yes, it started with Netflix. Like, to be fair, Netflix has been quote-unquote, anime has been quote-unquote mainstream, or at least becoming mainstream, since the advent of Tsunami. Yes, I get it, we had stuff before that. We had Akira, we had Ghost in the Shell, we had Dragon Ball, we had anime on various, like the Sci-Fi Channel. But in general, anime started becoming mainstream with Tsunami. Really started hitting it, around the mid-2000s. You had 4Kids TV, you had big shows like Naruto and whatnot blowing up. But then when Netflix saw the advantageous avenue of Netflix-specific anime, of really just making Netflix the home for anime, and this is back in like 2012 or so, when there was no real competition, that's when the wheels really started to turn for the true mainstreamification of anime.
Demon Slayer. Now, obviously, a lot of people are going to point out, like, Dragon Ball was very popular, Pokemon and stuff like that, and yes, they have a place, they are very popular. Not going to act like they aren't. However, we have to admit that anime wasn't, like, overwhelmingly popular, and wasn't accepted by pretty much the vastness of the world until Demon Slayer basically exploded and everything.
Okay, yeah, he's far too long on the timeline for that. I completely disagree. Demon Slayer is a relatively recent thing. When Netflix started shelling out the dough to really market anime, that was when it started, when you can quote-unquote call it officially mainstream.
Everybody started to talk about it. And then it was a systematic domino effect. Once Demon Slayer came out in 2019, COVID hit, and a lot of people that never would have touched anime, never would have ever given anime the time or day, or manga chapter a time or day to read, sat down and for the first time experienced anime and manga culture, because they had nothing better to do. They were sitting in their house, bored, didn't really have anything else, there was probably nothing good on Netflix or anything, so they decided to sit down and watch Demon Slayer. And this,
I mean, anime probably had a boom during COVID, but every medium and genre did. Video games experienced a boom. Certain movies did that were released direct to streaming or whatnot. Television shows got revitalized because people were watching them over and over. So yeah, no, I don't think he's correct here.
This is a cascading effect. Everything that, came out after Demon Slayer has been relatively similar. Now, obviously, there is some things that stand out among—
I would agree with that. Ever since Demon Slayer, we've had an onslaught of same old, same old. I've seen it before. Dragon Ball did it, One Piece did it, Naruto did it, and that's just talking shonen. Let's not even get into all the other genres. So yes, I would agree with that.
The crowd that is different from, let's say, Demon Slayer, JJK, Soul Leveling, Chainsaw Man. Frieren is a good example, since it's kind of what started this conversation. But when you look at the vastness of how popular anime has come, especially in the last 5 to 6 years, stuff like Frieren is a drop in the bucket. It is something that has a very small community or niche community in comparison to everything else. We like to think—
I mean, does it though? The Frieren fan base is loud, and I mean, rightfully so. It's a very good anime, but again, anime is not a genre. Anime is a medium, and within that medium, there are several genres. Is battle shonen the most famous here in the West? Yeah, but that doesn't mean there aren't other genres and other incredibly popular series within said genres.
That free run is incredibly popular. We like to think that free run is overwhelmingly popular to the same level as maybe Soul Leveling or Demon Slayer.
Well,
but
it's not.
That is so far from the truth. We are dead wrong. And the reason for this is a recent example from this year, actually, the Crunchyroll Anime Awards. Now, I'm not going to bring up old drama and try to say Crunchyroll rigged it or not, but one of the big...
Yeah, Crunchyroll means nothing. The Crunchyroll Awards mean nothing. I mean, it's the same as the Game Awards. It's the same as the Oscars. So, yeah, I don't think that's really a fair thing to even bring up.
Indications from that award that showed everyone is that anime fans that typically watch stuff like Freerun or watch Welcome to the NHK, Steins Gate, Takapi, whatever, we're in the minority now. Most anime fans, newcomers into the genre, typically only watch what's popular, typically what explodes on TikTok or social media platforms, what big content creators start talking.
Yeah, but that's always been the case, though. Even when anime was niche, like... yeah, everyone was watching Dragon Ball Z. Everyone was watching Pokemon. Then you had some people, they dabbled in some other stuff or whatnot. You know, oh, One Piece was on 4Kids. Shaman King was on 4Kids. But even then, that doesn't mean that they stayed with the medium. So anything that's popular is just that. It's popular. That doesn't mean that the medium as a whole is growing, or it doesn't mean that, you know, there aren't other niches within. So yeah, I'm not sure what point he's trying to make here.
Talking about, and then they dive into it. For instance, JJK or Soul Leveling, for instance. And so that's the point here, is that typically, as trends go, what's popular is what's going to be talked about and what these companies are going to prioritize, what they're going to focus on and put all their resources into. And
this isn't anime. I mean, this is the same for anything. Rock music was the staple of anything and everything from the, I would say, 60s through the 80s, 90s roll around, and now hip-hop starts being prioritized. And look at it now. Try and find me a #1 rock song, an actual rock song in like the Hot 200 or something.
Freerun losing like it did really showcased this, because anyone that sat down and watched it, and all the conversation around it, I think heavily agrees that it is one of the best shows in the last decade. It's hands down like in my top 10. It is a great show.
Okay, I wouldn't
so
go
many
that
life
far.
lessons, so many things to learn from it. It's fantastic. It is honestly a nice traditional fantasy, stuff that honestly just reminds you so much.
Well, no, it's not a nice traditional fantasy. He's right. That's what makes Freerun so special, is it sort of takes the idea of what a traditional fantasy is and turns it on its head. You know, this is the story of what happens after the fantasy adventure is done, after the Lord of the Rings is finished, after your great D&D campaign is finished. This is what happens afterwards. No, it's not it's traditional fantasy, and it has elves and magic and stuff. But that's really where the similarities end.
Much of Lord of the Rings, and if it reminds me of Lord of the Rings, that's a massive victory in my book. But the point is that obviously these companies in Japan, these Western companies and everything, they have seen how much money anime can make. We've had records being beat back to back over years now, to where the Japanese, anime industry is just expanding. There's so much money being funneled into it. There's so much.
And therein lies the biggest problem. And I've said this before, and I will continue to say it. Because anime is expanding into the West, and frankly, also due to investments by like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, things like that. But we're not going to get into that. Because anime is expanding, not just the West, but the world over at such a rapid rate, there has been ongoing talks, and I've covered this in several of the videos, so I'm not pulling this out of my ass, go check them out, about Japan changing, at least several mangaka, mostly the suits up at the top of these corporations, wanting to change how anime is done in terms of the writing, the characters, whatnot, to make it less intrinsically Japanese. For whatever reason, failing to understand that is why the fans do love it. I mean, the real fans, not the Fairweather fans. They're going to watch Demon Slayer and then turn on The Office for the 77th time.
Products being bought by people around the world, that it is now a massive moneymaker. I don't know necessarily if it's the biggest moneymaker in Japan, but it's probably definitely in the top 5. If I had to say in terms of merchandise and just marketing and money being funneled into Japan or funneled out of Japan and other people buying from other countries for their products, anime definitely is there. And I think that in general, a lot of these companies, Western companies like Netflix and stuff, have noticed this, and they're trying to dive into the pie, get their slice of the pie, and get a lot of money. And so what the director is necessarily saying here is that because of how the world works and how companies work in general, Disney is a good recent example, since we had stuff like that being called out recently. They're going to chase trends. They're going to chase things
Correct.
that are
Yes,
going
I
to
would
be
say
able to
this is
make
correct.
easy money, which is why Disney has tried to make basically very safe stuff for a very long time with the MCU or their movies. It's because they'd rather make easy money than be experimental and do something relatively unique. Now, obviously, this doesn't always work because Disney is now starting to feel issues from that. I mean, look at their latest movie box office releases and money they're getting. But the point is that it's clear that the anime industry is becoming that. It's morphing into that slowly. With the news with Kadokawa...
Anime is homogenizing. Yes, he is entirely correct. Anime is homogenizing, but to be fair, anime has been homogenizing for a while. Japan has been homogenizing for a while. This is not just an anime-specific issue. This is a Japanese issue because many very high-dollar Western corporations, again, specifically these investment firms, DEI, State Street, BlackRock, DEI, sorry, Vanguard, State Street, BlackRock, things to that effect, are investing in Japan. And they're saying, yo, we're going to give you these money for these video games. We're going to give you these money for this manga. We're going to give you this money for these anime. But you're gonna have to meet us in the middle and do some of the shit that we say, quid pro quo, and bingo, bango, bongo, that's how it happens. And again, I'm not making this up. There have been reports on this. Like, I've done many a video about the Western investment into the manga, anime, and video game industries in Japan. This is not a secret. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's happening. That's why you've got Capcom and Square Enix and all these companies saying, yes, we're going to stop focusing on Japan-centric ideas when it comes to making our games, and we're going to make them for a global audience. I mean, that's a net negative, but they didn't just come to this decision out of the blue. It was made for them because money talks, and there's been people giving them a lot of money to do so.
Trying to increase production budgets, with Kadokawa trying to basically cater more to the West. It's obvious that these companies are trying to get in line and just become more focused on the global market than anything else, because there's more money to be made. And basically...
But that will only work in the short term. Is there more money to be made? Yes, there is. However, once you lose your core fan base, once everything becomes so homogenized that the people like me, like Chibi Reviews, like many of you watching, because I assume you're watching this because you're an anime fan, once we stop watching modern stuff and stop buying, because anime is really just a commercial. Anime doesn't make money. Anime is an advertisement for you to buy shirts and buy statues and buy trading cards and all the merch, and that's where the money comes in. But if they start making all this new merch and all this stuff, and people don't buy it because they're not watching the new anime because it's a homogenized shell of what it used to be, yeah, this is a very short-term way to make money that's going to have huge ramifications for your core audience in the long run. And when you lose your core audience, the fair weather fans and normies will follow soon after. And Disney is a perfect example of this. I mean, look at the MCU. Why did the MCU work at first? Because it found the perfect balance between making comic book fans happy, but also being normie accessible. And because the comic book fans kept coming back, normies kept coming back. What happened after Endgame? Comic book fans stopped coming back after a bit because the movies became trash, and it took the normies a while to catch up, but they did catch up. Look at the box office for the Marvels, or the Thunderbolts, or the Fantastic Four. All of them flops because the core audience, the original comic book fans, are not happy. We hate this, and we're vocal about our hate for it. And eventually, the normies have caught on, and they are seeing the same trend. So now Disney is seeing massive losses with these particular properties. Star Wars is another example. So yeah, I mean, that could absolutely happen to anime. But Japan, I've been saying this for years, while they are about 5 years, give or take, behind the West in terms of, ideologies, movie-going trends, pop culture trends, things to that effect.
Is losing what made it popular to begin with. It being anime, being Japanese, made for the Japanese, and just people that, get into it are enjoying it. But it's clear that anime is now starting to play it a lot more safer and try to cater itself not just to the Japanese audience, but to an entire global audience, which I think is going to be disastrous in the long run, and it's going to lose the point of why anime became popular to begin with. And so when you have directors like this, for instance, the Free Run director, outright just talking about the situation, explaining their thought patterns on it, how they don't like the bias towards popular trends, it's not a disgruntled director or animator being upset about this. It's more of an insider seeing where the industry is going.
And again, this is a larger trend, not just for anime, but for Japanese creatives as a whole, because again, I've done several videos about the Japanese gaming industry that says the same thing. I mean, we've got people that have worked for Square Enix for ages, or Capcom for ages, that are upset at the shift towards a global audience. And they've talked about how they wish they could make games for an intrinsically Japanese audience again, but the studios aren't letting them do that. So again, Japanese creatives in general are feeling the shift from the suits up top who are taking this investment money from BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard and whatnot, and they're being like, well, the suits are telling us what to do. We can't do anything about it. We're the creatives. So all we can do is vent our frustrations to these YouTuber interviews or to these fan sites that write up these articles. And that's, I mean, hopefully this sort of sentiment goes viral because it's covered by other YouTubers and whatnot. But that's the best they can do. And how do they fight this? Because the money is what talks.
The industry is shaping into only focusing on projects like JJK or Chainsaw Man or Demon Slayer than focusing on projects like Takapi or Freerun. Because, let's be honest here, anyone that's like watched Freerun or even Takapi, one of the recent examples that came out this season, I think we can all agree Takapi is incredible. Great anime. Like, I think we all, if you've watched it, can agree on that.
I've not watched
However,
Takapi.
in terms of money it's probably made, it is so minuscule, a drop in the bucket in comparison to what, let's say, Chainsaw Man or JJK can pump out. That it prints money, so to speak. But Takapi, for instance, won't. Despite how much love and passion was put into that project, and regardless of how it is a masterclass of a show, why would any company want to focus so heavily on something that isn't going to sell as much as, let's say, something that's safer, like Demon?
Correct. He is entirely correct here. However, the question is, why isn't it selling? It's not, I don't know about Takapi in general, but in the long run, it's not going to be because it's not safe or because it's too safe or whatnot. For anime, it's going to be because it's not intrinsically Japanese anymore.
Slayer. So you can see the issue here. Now, I do want to go on record and say that Battle Shonen has always been popular.
Yes.
I'm not saying it isn't. There's a reason why.
There's long periods of time, I would say up until probably just the last 5 or so years, and really the stigma exists to this day, that when you say anime in the West, people don't think of anime as a medium. They just think of the genre Battle Shonen. Like, that's just how it is. When you say anime, normies are going to think Dragon Ball, Naruto, One Piece, to this day, Demon Slayer. And, like, that's such a small piece of what makes anime, but that's what anime was synonymous with, honestly, from the 90s until very recently, and that stigma is only just now leaving when it comes to the casuals.
One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, and stuff is incredibly popular. There's a reason for that. But it was still, like I said, a hot pot. There was so much to choose from. But now it seems like that hot pot is getting mixed with only one ingredient, and it's messing up the entirety of the cook. It's just literally one thing. And I feel like a lot of anime companies are establishing themselves or gearing in to only making stuff that's similar to what is making money. So, it's pretty sad, honestly. It just once again shows that anime as a culture and industry is fundamentally changing and changed. It will never go back to what it once was.
He is correct.
Obviously, as time progresses, we will see little things that stand out like Freerun or Takapi come here and there over the years, but it'll become, I think, more and more rarer as time goes on, as more series focus on the same trends that, you know, has been popular for the last few years. It's basically kind of what happens with the gaming community. Like, you remember the whole zombie trend?
See?
In the early 2010s.
Equating it to gaming.
The Battle Royale
He's getting
trend
it.
and all that. You know, there's always these trends, and I feel like that's kind of what's happening to anime, but on a more mainstream level, that will have disastrous effects for the entire industry, and what's...
Okay, well, again, Chibi Reviews bias is showing there. Gaming has been, and always will be far more mainstream than anime. So, it's not happening on a more mainstream level with anime. No, this shit came for gaming ages ago. It took it over in terms of the homogenization that comes to gaming, at least to the modern AAA scene, and anime is following suit.
Actually focus on, because there's going to be a lot of stories and series that are going to be basically thrown to the side or just swept under the rug and never focused on, just to focus on something that could reach a wide appeal of an audience. That's what I think the future is. So yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about this. It's very fascinating, honestly, and I do want to show something, honestly, that does need to be called out that is relevant to this conversation, so let's switch to that. So this right here is a clip that graced my feed earlier today.
I've been seeing this clip going around X. I haven't watched it yet, but I've been seeing this clip going around on X a lot. What's the context here?
when I was, about to talk about this article here, but this clip in question is more or less a good example of what I've been talking about for years at this point, and how the anime community has changed, and you have the used-to-be bullies, people that would bully anime fans, diving into the anime community to change it within. And I'm just gonna play about probably 10 seconds of this clip, and you can kind of get a good grasp of what this person's trying to say. So let's play this real quick.
You own this, you need to be locked up. You ever put something like this in your cart, you need to be locked up. If you see this and don't see a problem with it, you should probably seek some help.
And there it is. That is what I've been talking about. This is what I've been saying for ages now with the, globalization of anime. Because there are people out there that are, again, fair weather fans, if you even want to call them fans, because they're normies, because they're casuals, and they just saw popular thing that they like here. Take My Hero Academia. My Hero Academia is actually a very Western show in terms of, comparing it to other, very intrinsically Japanese things. I mean, it makes sense. My Hero Academia is based on the Western superhero boom and whatnot. That was the big inspiration. So, yeah, when you've got folks that come in and they only like a slut title here or there and don't bother to try to understand the culture, understand why anime fans enjoy stuff like this, they're going to have this reaction. And if and when, or when, I guess I should say if or when, the Japanese suits, the people that, make these products and whatnot, start seeing a cultural backlash from these normies, they might go the same route as the video game industry of, we need to begin the sanitization process so that we can try to appeal to more and more people, therefore losing what made the anime community the anime community.
Sam, this has always been a thing in the anime community, but at some point we have to draw a line somewhere.
No, we don't. We do not have to draw a line anywhere. You guys can just get the fuck out and go to a different hobby or whatnot that does cater to your sensibilities or whatever, without trying to change it from the inside. We need to gatekeep harder.
If I need to point out why this is wrong, I will. Let's explain. I'll make it very brief. These new fans that used to never care for anime, don't care about the culture, don't care to adapt to the culture or learn why people like anime or manga, they're coming into the communities and trying to force the will of anime and manga and light novels, whatever, to bend to their ideals of what they want, which...
Exactly. I don't know if Chibi is new to this stuff. I don't know if he's not been following the broader culture war for the last, decade or so, a little over a decade, if we wanted to put the starting point at Gamergate, but this isn't new. This has happened with gaming. This has happened with D&D. This has happened with Warhammer 40k. This has happened with comic books. This has happened with mainstream Hollywood movies. I mean, I can go on and on and on. It with a million different fandoms. And this has actually been going on with anime for a very long time. It's just not really been taken seriously because most anime fans are like, yeah, whatever, shut the fuck up, get out of here. And modern anime fans are children, so they don't really know how to fucking respond. And when I say children, I don't mean literally. I mean, well, a lot of them literally as well, but fucking mentally, because they're so new to this shit. And so we just pay them no mind. That's kind of a net negative, because if we pay them no mind, that means we're not calling them out, which means we're not gatekeeping. And that's in and of itself a problem on our end as far as the old heads go.
Which gets into the conversation of the whole director thing. That these new fans are forcing these studios and animators and stuff to do what they want, this merchandise sells to do what they want, and if they don't do what they want, then they're gonna basically, be very upset. They're gonna pull a hissy fit, and they're going to, decry it or try to buzzword you to death. And in this case, what this individual does throughout this entire clip is pretty much say that you're a pedo if you, buy figures. Fan service ecchi figures of characters. Yeah, we've gotten to that point. We've been at that point
for a while. People just have been ignoring it.
You're a weirdo. You should turn yourself into the police. That's crazy, man. This is the type of, new anime fans that we've been getting, and it's getting worse. You didn't see this type of stuff, honestly, pre-2020.
Yes, you did.
Here and there.
Yes, you did. The thing is, it was small, it was isolated, and we thought, whatever, it's just one or two retarded people, and we swept it under the rug because we're like, it's not even worth making a big deal about. Which is the downfall of any and all fandoms, is not gatekeeping from the beginning. And I'm not fucking judging. I was probably guilty of the same thing when it came to the anime stuff. I was like, look, Anime's fine. It's the last bastion of freedom. I've got more important things that are to talk about right now, such as Marvel or video games, because that's what's happening. We've already let the problem get there, and so by focusing on where the issue is super noticeable, neglected to gatekeep where it's slowly taking root, nipping it, nipping it in the bud or whatnot. And so yeah, this isn't me sort of like grandstanding or being on a high horse or whatnot. I'm sure I'm just as guilty of it. But no, this did exist pre-2020. You saw this in 2014 with Gamergate when it came to anime. You saw this in 2016 when the Trump administration, it was in full swing, and you had liberals going after anything and everything that was just whatever it could be twisted to be an ideological opposition to them. So yes, you did see this.
But it was so little, it was non-existent. But now, you see this like multiple times a day, which is just sad, man. And a lot of the reasons why I think this is happening now, if I had to take an educated guess, I think there's two reasons to this. You have people that obviously believe this and think that it's weird and then people should be locked up for it. I also think there's another side of these clout chasers, people that know that it's going to get a reaction out of people.
There's that too.
Obviously, it's getting a reaction out of me.
And that's the balancing act. Knowing when and how to gatekeep, and knowing when you're quote-unquote, like feeding the trolls. And it's something that even to this point, I haven't figured. Like, I'll see a retarded-ass video like this, and I'll pay it no mind and keep scrolling. Was that the right move? Should I pay it no mind and keep scrolling, or should I have said something? And you'll see it all the time with, again, a multitude of fandoms. I mean, there's a reason Sonic fans like me that are completely fucking normal are afraid to acknowledge they're Sonic fans because of the reputation that Sonic the Hedgehog has thanks to fucking DeviantArt. Like, where do you draw the line between gatekeeping and feeding the trolls? It's definitely is a tightrope walk.
And it's going to cause conversation around it, and it's going to, get them clout. People basically are, honestly, this is probably the best time to really say the word, grifting. Actual grifters that are grifting on anime and manga content, saying things that they don't truly believe, just to be able to make as much money or conversation around it. And that's what I think is honestly been going on with this topic, and I think it's getting worse, because you now have a new generation of people that are getting into anime and manga that, are now having access to video recording cameras and stuff and social media to record and put the reactions online. And because you can easily monetize stuff nowadays online, that's what people are doing. They can just monetize these very rage-baiting, obvious things that are just going to piss people off to get as much money as possible. And it clearly works. I mean, there's a reason why you have like these prank channels and stuff that do absolutely horrific things, and they keep getting worse and worse, is because people watch them, because people will still click on them. And it's just a really bad systematic effect I've seen getting worse and worse over the years, and this is a really good example of that. But I want to leave it there. Just wanted to talk about this. Thank you so much for watching. Be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.
Yeah, it was a pretty decent video. I think that Chibi is kind of behind in this conversation. Again, this is something that I've been talking about for ages, and maybe he has as well. Maybe this is just sort of a greatest hit sort of thing, but if this is the first time he's noticing this or talking about this, this has been the case for ages, and I think his timeline is wrong on a lot of the stuff that he's saying here. But the overall message is still correct. And yeah, as long as there are these investment firms, State Street, BlackRock, Vanguard, investing in Japan, investing in these, and not just anime, but manga companies, video game companies, we're going to continue to see this to be an issue, because it's not just bowing and kowtowing to Western ideologies because that's what makes more money. It's doing so because there is a forced global cultural shift happening, which sounds super conspiratorial, but at what point do you need to just, can you stop ignoring the world around you and closing your eyes to everything to realize that this is the case? I mean, we see it in literally every single industry. Why would anime be safe from this? So yeah, all in all, great video. Do what you can, gatekeep harder, make sure to watch dope anime, not just fucking battle shonen. I recommend Carolyn Tuesday. But these are just my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below, or let me know on X. You can find me at Bolt the Word. And please do subscribe. I'm a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. Not always about the anime video game industry, but movies, Magic the Gathering, music, you name it. Check me out on Instagram at wordsparadise_Leon and become a member. For $4.99 a month, you can join the Discord, choose the articles we go over on a day-to-day basis, choose the videos we react to on the daily streams, and of course get involved with over 200 other vital idols. We are a bright, beautiful, glowing, vibrant community that I cannot wait to grow even further, because we do care about diversity. But only one kind of diversity of thought that's interesting to you. Join the Discord, hit subscribe, and until next time, it is all here in the Nerdosphere. This has been Words of Paradise.